Hello everybody, this is Shenandoah, or Squishy Stitches. We're back for part 5 of our Stitch With Me of Onde by Melanie Delon. So as you can see, I finally got the color I was missing, so we're filling that in today, as well as another color we were missing. So anyways, for anybody who's just tuning in, thank you and welcome. What we are doing is we are working on a Heaven and Earth design. This is the project I use for my Stitch With Me. The only time I work on it is when I'm filming a Stitch With Me. So you'll get, if you watch the whole series, eventually you will see the whole project from start to finish. So what already over, but what you had seen was how I tie in a thread. I do a sort of modified pin stitch to the front and then just continue on my way. So that's what we are doing. For those of you who've been watching the whole series, thank you so much. I'm glad to have you back. So today I am going to go over, well, I got my 23andMe ancestry results back. I took the test because in my family there is a genetic disease and I wanted to see if I had the carrier genes for it. And thankfully, I do not. But the rest of the results are kind of fun, so I figured we'd go over them together. So the first thing they show is your ancestry, where you're from. So, it says I am 99.5% European. That actually surprised me because I am one of those people whose family says you have a Native American ancestor. Actually, we have it documented that my great-great-grandmother was a Native America from the Chippewa tribe, and we even know what tribe it is. It's in Canada. But maybe it's just too far removed to show up in my chart in a quantifiable amount. But it says 99.5% European, which is split. Northwestern European is 97.3. What they classify Northwestern is British and Irish, French and German, Scandinavian. So how that breaks down for me is 37.6 is British and Irish. Just seeing if it has a breakdown of that. It shows a map where it's like color coded. I'll try and get that inserted. But it says that my ancestry is from the following 10 regions. The first being Greater London, then Glasgow, Greater Manchester, West Midlands, West Yorkshire, Lancashire, Belfast, Merseyside, South Yorkshire, and Nottinghamshire. So, English. They did not detect enough of any Irish to say what area. And then the next is 34.7% French and German, which is not surprising. In the map it shows it's very solidly German, from the Baden-Württemberg region, which again is something I knew. My family name is Pitcher, but when our family immigrated at Ellis Island, they changed it from Betzer over to Pitcher because they didn't like the German one, I guess. So it's a southern German area. southern Germany. So, yeah, I'm a third German. And then it also says 9.5% Scandinavian, which again I expected, mainly from Sweden. And yeah, it says Sweden, which I knew. We have Swedish on my father's mother's side. And it says from Västergötland County, Stockholm County, Värmland County, Dalarna County, Jönköping County, and Örebro County. So that's, I don't know. That's what that says. And then it says broadly Northwestern European, which is basically saying that they show Northwestern European traits, but they can't identify specific regions. So it would be like Ireland, England, Norway, Finland, France, around the Baltic Sea. Yeah. Then I'm 1.4% Southern European, but it's all broadly Southern European. They couldn't really identify a region. And then after that, it says 0.5% Eastern European. And then the trace ancestry, which, is very negligible, is 0.3% Southern East African, which would be like Nigeria and Cameroon, all the way down to Kenya and Tanzania. And then the rest, 0.1%, is unassigned. So I am basically the whitest white girl ever. That's what it's saying. I don't have any Jewish or anything like that. It says of people who've taken the test, I have 1,311 relatives and 9 close relatives. So when I click on that to see who the close relatives are, I literally know 2 of them. Everybody else is not somebody I even have heard of. So that's unusual. Now I'm going through the next section. Alright, so as a get to know your relatives, it doesn't really say a whole lot, but it says they are 49% less likely to drink espresso drinks than average, and 100% of my ancestors have British or Irish ancestry. And then, after that, it has Neanderthal ancestry. Now, you may not know this, but if you have any European ancestry, you are part Neanderthal. The amount ranges anywhere from very negligible 0.5% all the way up to 4 or 5%. So, we're looking at that. And it says I have 305 Neanderthal variants, which is 90% more than other 23andMe customers. Says I have the most out of all of my family. And the highest person in 23andMe to have Neanderthal variants has 397. So, the traits associated with 23andMe are with Neanderthal. Is straight hair, less likely to sneeze after eating dark chocolate. I didn't know that was a thing. Who sneezes after eating dark chocolate? I've never heard of that. Less back hair. Well, that's a bonus. I didn't know Neanderthals had little back hair. They're always interpreted as covered in hair, but... And then height, which I am short. I am stocky, so I can see that. I'm only 5'2", so I'm short. I was just looking through the Neanderthal bit. So, it says I am slightly less than 4% of my overall DNA is Neanderthal DNA. So, I'm a cave woman. I am amused by that. I'm very amused by that. It also shows your maternal haplogroup, which is what a haplogroup is just your maternal line. It basically shows how your family migrated through Europe. And mine is H1. So I'm just looking to see where that goes. So H1 stems from the common ancestor of haplogroup H1 lived between 9,000 and 15,000 years ago, not long after the end of the Ice Age. The maternal line of ancestors have been among the former inhabitants of continental Europe, people who were pushed out of the north by glacial ice sheets. They sheltered for thousands of years in the warmer refuges along the Mediterranean, including the Iberian Peninsula. They followed the Atlantic coast and carried H1 into what would become the British Isles. As the climate continued to warm, some carried the haplogroup as far north as Scandinavia, while others went east across the Strait of Gibraltar into northern Africa. Today, about 13% of present-day Europeans trace their maternal ancestry back to the H1 haplogroup. And for the Spanish population, the rate is nearly 25%. About 1 in 19 people have that haplogroup. So, then it shows some trees and stuff like that, how it migrated and stuff like that. I will not show my father's genetic line because that is carried on the Y chromosome, and being a woman and a genetic female, I don't have that. So that's my haplogroup. which is a more recent one. Like, haplogroup L is from 18,000 years ago. Haplogroup L3, 65,000 years ago. Haplogroup N, 59,000 years ago. Haplogroup R, 57,000 years ago. And then mine is 10,000 years. Which is... So that's the haplogroup. Then it shows health and traits, which at first it's just what genetic diseases I might be at risk for. Which isn't a lot. It says slightly or not at risk for alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. Not likely at risk. Hereditary hemochromatosis, which is having too much iron in your blood. Slightly increased risk. Hereditary thrombophilia, that's how likely you are to get blood clots, slightly increased risk. Kind of knew that because my dad got them all the time. Increased likelihood of diabetes, or type 2 diabetes, yes I know. And that's all it says there. It also shows what diseases you may be a carrier for, which I'm not a carrier for anything, but it has a lot of different ones, including the one I wanted to take the test for, which was Sjogren-Larsen syndrome, which I do not have the variations for. My mother, both her sisters, and her mom all had it, so, and a couple of my cousins on that side had it, so I figured I would get tested this way to see if I have the genes. That way I can discuss it with my doctor if I did, but I don't, so I'm not worried about it. Doesn't mean I won't get it, because there may be variations on genetics that they don't currently know about or test for, but the main ones they test for I don't have. And then it goes through wellness, like random traits. So alcohol flush reaction, where you turn red, unlikely to flush. Has more information about that. Caffeine consumption, likely to consume more. Yes, I do. I drink a lot of caffeine on a daily basis. It says it's based on 2 genetic variances on different genes. That plays a role in how your body handles caffeine. The first gene contains instructions for an enzyme that breaks down 95% of the caffeine you consume. The second gene contains instructions for protein that ramps up production of the first one's enzyme. So I have both of those. And it has a lot more information about caffeine, which I'm not going to go into. It says, I am less likely to be a deep sleeper. I will 100% agree with that. I don't sleep well. And it shows how the delta waves of sleepers like me and delta waves of deep sleepers, they're different. It actually says I'm an average sleeper, which I don't agree with. I have a Fitbit, and the trends of me sleeping, I wake up like 30 times a night and move. It explains more about what deep sleep is, and talks about a caffeine connection, which I don't drink caffeine after about 6 or 7 o'clock at night, just so I can hopefully sleep. It says genetic weight, predisposed to weigh more than average. It says about 7% more. I am even more than that. A lot of that's because I don't exercise enough. Working on it. So I'm working on losing the excess. It has more information about, eating healthy and blah, blah, blah. We all know that information, or we have access to it. Lactose intolerance says I am likely intolerant. I haven't really noticed anything, but the only dairy I consume is cheese. I hate milk. I will not drink milk. It's just nasty, and it's sweet and sour and ugh. No. If I have to drink milk, it has to be chocolate. I cannot do regular milk. Oh, and I do have butter too. But and occasionally cottage cheese, but I don't seem to have the reaction. My mom was lactose intolerant, and she had lots of stomach cramping and stuff. Muscle composition. Common in elite power athletes. Studies have found that almost all elite power athletes, including sprinters, throwers, and jumpers, have a specific gene variant related to muscle composition. I have the same genetic variant. What that means for me, for most people, lifestyle and training factors drive athletic performance. The national and international levels of competition, the genetic variant in this report seems to make a difference in athletic success. But its role for non-elite athletes is not understood. Bases on a genetic marker in the ACTN3 gene, and it's about whether the muscles produce a certain protein that's found in fast twitch muscle fibers. So, I guess if I wanted to be athletic, I could more easily than some people. It says saturated fat and weight. They're going to be similar to what my diet is. Whether I eat high, saturated fat, or low will be about the same. Some people process saturated fats better than others. And then sleep movement, likely more than average movement. Yeah, I know that. I toss and turn, I flail. I have punched and kicked my husband in my sleep. The dogs won't sleep in bed with me because I flail too much. I have never let my son sleep in bed with me because I'm scared of hitting him in my sleep, because I have punched my husband in my sleep or kicked him. And I don't want to inflict that on my child. So number of sleep movements per hour, it says 16 is about what I would expect. 12 is about average. One moment, I'm pulling up Fitbit just real quick to see what I had recently. Okay. Let's see. Based on when it shows movements, last night I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 movements. So, yeah. That was pretty accurate for 23andMe. And then it goes into the biology of sleep movement, which I have not read. Scientists detect sleep movement by placing electrodes. Just some evidence suggests that the BTBD9 protein affects how the body stores iron, which could influence how the brain regulates sleep movement. Some of the brain areas that store the most iron are also involved in regulating movement. The brain uses iron for many functions, including building molecules in the brain that cells use to communicate to each other. And that's basically what it says about that. Okay, so it goes over that. And then it has a bunch of traits based on appearance. So, give me a second. Moving my leg. Okay, so it says ability to match a musical pitch. I am more likely to be able to match a musical pitch. I couldn't verify that, but I was in choir, I wasn't kept in the back, and I did have a couple solo parts, so I guess that's true. Asparagus odor detection. So that's being able to smell asparagus and pea, and I don't even need a test to tell you, I can smell that. But it says, yes, genetically I can smell that. I thought everybody could, but you know. Bitter taste. Likely can't taste. So I'm unlikely to detect certain bitter tastes. So it says, like, does raw broccoli or Brussels sprouts taste bitter to you? I'm guessing not, because I eat them all the time. I eat both weekly. And the genetics of bitter taste detection. It's about a protein or a chemical called PTC, which isn't usually found in the human diet, but is similar to chemicals present in vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. People with a variant can taste these PTC-like chemicals. That means the variant may taste bitterness in these foods and avoid them altogether. That would explain why some people hate broccoli and hate Brussels sprouts. The next one, bunions. Less likely than average to have a bunion. Well, that's good to know. Says the average 23andMe research participant has a 17% chance of reporting that they have had a bunion. Based on my genetic factors, I have a 9.9%. So not very many. Or very big. Cheek dimples, likely no dimples. Let's see. I used to have dimples when I was a kid, but they seem to have gone away, or they're not as noticeable. So I guess that's accurate. Cilantro taste aversion. Slightly higher odds of disliking cilantro. I hate cilantro. It tastes like soap. It tastes so much like soap. And it says that it's based on 2 genes that variotypes. Overall, just 13% of 23andMe research participants think cilantro tastes like soap. Well, I'm one of them. So I don't eat cilantro. I pick it out. And I accidentally backed out too far. There it is. Cleft chin. Likely no cleft chin. I do not. I always wanted one as a kid, but do not. Dandruff. Less likely to get dandruff. I don't know how other people are, but I don't have dandruff. I very rarely have dandruff. Earlobe type, likely detached earlobes, yes. Earwax type, likely wet earwax. I don't even know what that means. Does it mean it's not like dry and crusty, or does it mean it's like wet? Okay, wet earwax is darkly colored and sticky, okay. While dry earwax is light colored and flaky. Both types are equally good at keeping dirt and bacteria at bay, but the difference between the two is determined by a variant in the ABCC11 gene. So, okay. What earwax says about your armpits. So the same gene for earwax is involved in sweat production and body odor. So having wet earwax means you're going to have more body odor, according to this. That's interesting. Did not know that. Eye color, likely to have brown or hazel eyes. My eyes are technically hazel, but they're very olive green with a little bit of brown in them. So, it goes through the genetics of that. It says some people have rings around the inner edge of the iris. That's where my brown is. And just different ways your irises can look. It's interesting, but I'm not going to go over everything. It looks like quite in depth. Fear of heights, less likely than average to be afraid of heights. It's true, when I was a kid, I rock climbed. Fear of public speaking, more likely, yes. Finger length index, likely to have an index finger longer. Mine is shorter. Flat feet, I do not have that. I have extremely high arches, which has caused me foot problems in the past. Freckles, likely little freckling. I do have a few, but not many. Hair photo bleaching, more likely to experience hair photo bleaching. That's true, my hair does get more blonde in the sun. Hair texture, likely straight or wavy. It's very straight. I've had people ask me, what straightener do you use? I let it air dry. That's my secret. Hair thickness, less likely to have thick hair. I have very thick hair. It's just fine hair as well. So there's a lot of hair, but just looks like I have an average amount because it's so fine. Newborn baby hair, likely to have little baby hair. I don't remember. Photic sneeze reflex, not likely to have that. I do not. I was boggled when I learned people sneezed when they looked at bright lights. It was like, what? Red hair, likely no red hair. Nope, my hair is brown. Skin pigmentation, likely lighter skin. Yeah, I'm like ghostly pale. I'm Irish girl at the beach pale. You know that meme where you see two women, but one looks normal and the other blends into the sand? I'm the one blending into the sand. Stretch marks, more likely to have stretch marks. I have a ton. Like, my whole stomach is covered in them from when I was pregnant. I have them from when I was growing. I have them all over my chest and my hips. So yeah. Sweet versus salty. Likely prefer salty. That is very true. Toe length ratio. Likely big toe longer. Yes, it's like 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch longer than all my other toes. Unibrow. Likely no unibrow. Woohoo! Yeah, I don't have a unibrow. Wake up time. Likely to wake up around 8:04 a.m. I have no idea where they got that. I tend to, left on my own, wake up around 10. But that's probably because I stay up till 4 a.m. I'm a night owl. So maybe that's what this means. Yeah, it does say I'm a night owl. So that is accurate. I just tend to take it to an extreme. Widow's peak. Likely no widow's peak. That is true. And it goes into the genetics of that. And that is all it shows for traits. And we've gone through everything else. So, yeah, that was my genetic results. Has family and friends, family tree. But I'm not going to go through any of that because that's all just a lot of stuff. But I did find the test very interesting. So, let me know what you think about that. If you've taken any genetic tests, I'd be curious to hear what yours said. Were there any surprises? Mine was the amount of Neanderthal DNA being so high. I'm always going to be amused by that. And then how much it can actually predict you, like with traits, like what kind of sleeper you are, how much caffeine you like. All of that was pretty interesting to me. But yeah, that's all I have. So I'm gonna cut it off here. There'll be a couple more minutes of me just stitching. But I will see you on Tuesday of next week. And the Creepy Stitchy for February will be coming out soon. It will be on the 13th. So keep your eyes out for that. And until then, have a great day. Bye!